everybody. My name is Emily Adkins, and this is my presentation on my SCE titled The Choice of Exile, Revolution and Identity in Death and the Maiden and Kiss of the Spider Woman. Death and the Maiden by Ariel Dorfman and Kiss of the Spider Woman by Manuel Puig are two stories of alienation from larger society written by Latin American authors who spent time in social and political exile. Though perhaps rarely analyzed in concert, I would argue that these works bear more similarities than merely their initial language. Both speak to truths I believe are useful and applicable across the world. I was drawn to these works, pardon me, because I have already explored Death and the Maiden in some depth in another research report, and have found it worthwhile to explore works outside my typical purview. English studies have a tendency to focus on, of course, English works, and these were both originally written in Spanish. Even among English works, there's a tendency to focus on works written by American or English authors. So Latin American authors, even those who do write in English, like Puig and Dorfman, sometimes fall to the wayside. My studies took me to many interesting places, and I learned many, I wouldn't say exciting things, but new information. I learned more about the history of the settings of these works, the lives of the authors, the nature of trauma, new ideas about gender, historical views on queer issues, and so many other things. I could scratch the surface of that in my presentation today, but given that I'm sure many of you in the audience are unfamiliar with these pieces, I'd love to introduce you to these works and authors that I've fallen in love with. Ariel Dorfman is a Jewish man born in 1942 who throughout his life has lived in Argentina, the United States, and perhaps most significantly Chile, among other places. In Chile, he has held political office, and the 1990 play Death and the Maiden is set there. Although there is also a caveat that it may be set in any nation that has just had a revolution freeing itself from tyranny. In his own words, Death and the Maiden is a work that stresses the need of the marginalized by society to have their voices heard, and what a struggle it can be, something he is intimately aware of as a Jewish man and in intermittent political exile. Manuel Puig was born in 1932 and died in 1990. In the words of Jose Rivera, a gay man in the conformist, patriarchal, militarized macho society of 1970s Argentina, Puig identified with the hidden, marginalized, voiceless men and women of his time. All his life, he rejected the labels homosexual and heterosexual. He saw no difference between men and women, except for the superficial differences of sex organs, and felt that men and women were trapped by society and their internalizations of society's tyrannical impulses. In these artificial roles, he was a crusader in the battle for social freedom. As Puig once mused, the woman most desperately in need of liberation is the woman every man has locked in the dungeons of his own psyche. Like Dorfman, Puig lived around the world in his education and exile, but he was born in, and his 1976 novel Kiss of the Spider Woman is set within Argentina. Both of these home countries face political upheaval in their lifetime, the reality of which is too complex to get into in a brief 15-minute presentation. For context, however, Death's probable Chile has just finished a revolution, and Kiss's Argentina is in the midst of the aspirations of one. In both works, the small casts have very direct ties to these revolutions, but simultaneously feel a great alienation from them. The main connecting theme and my thesis revolved around the idea that some people have no choice when it comes to radical existence. Society forces exile and labels like insane upon those who cannot or will not conform. Unlike the majority of cases, however, the protagonists of these stories willfully reject society's standards and expectations, reclaiming the power that has been denied to them. Who can tell the story has as much power as those who make the rules. How we use our voices is important. Individuals like the story's leads, by virtues of their marginalization, are forced into the roles of revolutionary, as their only other choice is suffocation under the heel of societal conformism. This does not make their actions any less meaningful than those undertaken by those who have more choice in the matter. In fact, the ease with which society crushes the other makes their decisions almost more worthwhile. It takes strength to rebel. The more immediate setting for these two pieces seemingly could not be more different. Death's primary couple live in well-to-do lives within a beach house. Gerardo, the husband, has received an exciting promotion, an opportunity to create justice for those mistreated by the previous tyrannical regime. Despite a conflict with his wife Polina about her seething paranoia and scattered thoughts, they seem happy enough. Kiss, on the other hand, is set in a prison cell in Buenos Aires. The cellmates are Marxist political prisoner Valentin Aguirre and gay window dresser Luis Molina. From the outset, their differences are clear, as is the fact that they would not have chosen to spend their days together. They pass the time with Molina's recounted movies. Practice Valentin simultaneously encourages and derides. It is only through an illness that strikes both, necessitating that they take care of each other to survive, that they come to an understanding and grow close. Enter the complicating factors. In death, the affable Roberto's visit becomes an interrogation as Polina reveals he is the former torturer of the old regime who left her too traumatized to so much as listen to her favorite song. For Kiss, it is the warden. He has intentionally been poisoning Valentin to weaken his resolve and hopefully suss out information on the political resistance, catching Molina in the crossfire and hoping that he can be of use as a spy. The stories move in opposite directions. Through Molina's storytelling, the prison cell becomes various settings, aligning with the movie plots he recounts to Valentin. And through the power of this escapism, the two become friends and lovers. In a much briefer period of time, Polina and Gerardo's marriage is strained, almost to the breaking point, and their lovely home becomes a prison and site of torture for Roberto. Polina feels powerless in a society that is attempting to maintain the status quo and ensure a smooth transition with a violent regime that traumatized her for life. Her own husband is meant to bring her justice for these crimes, but she makes clear her belief that his official commission will be ineffectual. They both know she will be excluded from any possible benefit the government can officially offer. Her decision is drastic but simple. She will become a parody of Roberto, imitating his gendered violence in order to take her own justice, with or without the approval of her husband, the former revolutionary, now turned contented political moderate. Molina opts to withhold any information he learns from Valentin, from the warden, in order to protect his friend, and instead decides to join with Valentin's political group. Tragically, he is executed by the very group in the process, and disrespected by both the police and Valentin's comrades in the process. In his death, however, a death that he went into willingly and with open eyes, he solidifies himself as a true hero, along the lines of the cinematic heroines he so greatly admires. Both of these stories append the traditional culture of machismo that exists within their settings. Instead of the masculine, patriarchal figure moving the plot forward, it is the diminished, effeminate character that most heavily acts upon the plot. In this, both authors imply that change proceeds from the existing status quo is less revolutionary when those steps are being taken by those within and supported by the primary culture. Neither story has a precise, clear-cut ending. Gerardo's fate is left ambiguous, and while Valentin at least briefly outlives Melina, there is very little chance he will ever see the outside of prison again. On the positive side, however, Helena is able to listen to her favorite song for the first time in her married life without being horribly triggered, and Melina lives on within Valentin's memories. As Valentin's more feminine side, he has finally gotten in touch with, notes, "The dream is short, but the dream is happy." There's something worthwhile in their lives, no matter what horrors they have or will endure, no matter how long they have left to live. And to conclude, I would like to read an excerpt from my SCE. All of the core characters in these works live somewhat performative lives. Paulina and Gerardo both try to maintain a front that they are ordinary citizens